It is how to pronounce English words correctly. You can know many words. You can learn a lot of grammar. You can even read and write well. But if you cannot pronounce words clearly, then people may not understand you. Sometimes this makes you feel shy. Sometimes it makes you afraid to speak. But I want to tell you that pronunciation can be improved step by step. It is not something impossible. You only need to understand the sounds of English. You need to train your ear. You need to train your mouth. If you do this slowly and with practice every day, you will see results. In this story, I want to share how I learned. I want to show the problems I had. I want to show how you can also practice. I know many of you feel the same way. Sometimes you try to say a word, but it comes out wrong. You feel embarrassed, but that is normal. Do not give up. Together, we can find a way to speak clearly and with confidence. When I first started to learn English, I thought pronunciation was easy. I thought I only needed to read the word and say it. Very soon, I found that English words are not always pronounced the way they are written. This made me confused. For example, the word though looks different from through, but they sound very different. Cough and bow look almost the same, but they are said in strange ways. I realized I could not trust spelling alone. I needed to listen carefully to how native speakers said the words. Then I needed to copy them, like a shadow. In the beginning, my brain did not hear the small differences. In my own language, those sounds did not exist. When I tried to say words like ship and sheep, they both sounded the same from my mouth. I could not understand why. Then one teacher told me that my ear was not trained to hear the difference. She gave me a simple exercise. She said, "Listen to both words one after the other. Say ship, sheep, ship, sheep. Try to notice the long sound in sheep and the short sound in ship." At first, I still could not hear it, but after many days of listening and repeating, one day my brain clicked. Suddenly, I could hear the small change. After that, it became easier to say the words correctly. This taught me something important. Before your mouth can pronounce a sound, your ear must first learn to hear it. This is the first big step in pronunciation. Another problem I had was with the th sound, like in the words think or this. In my language, there was no sound where you put your tongue between your teeth. I always said sink instead of think. I always said dis instead of this. People would laugh. I felt bad. Then I learned that to make the sound, I needed to relax. I put my tongue gently between my teeth. I blew air. It was strange. It felt funny, but little by little it became normal. Now I can say it without thinking. This shows that even if a sound is new, your mouth can learn new habits. You must practice slowly and often. There were also times when I thought I was saying words correctly, but people did not understand me. I did not know why. Then I learned that stress and rhythm are also part of pronunciation. In English, some syllables are strong and others are weak. If you say the wrong syllable strongly, the whole word can sound strange. For example, if you say photograph instead of photograph, the listener may be confused. Pronunciation is not only about sounds, it is also about music. English has its own music that you must follow. The best way to feel this music is to listen to native speakers and repeat after them. That is why listening every day is so important. Sometimes I watched movies. Sometimes I listened to songs. I tried to copy the way people spoke. It was fun. Slowly my pronunciation improved. I was not only learning with my head, I was also training my ear and my mouth together. It was like a sport. That is the secret. Pronunciation is not only knowledge, it is muscle memory. Your mouth must move in a new way. Your tongue must find new positions. This needs practice again and again until it feels natural. Many learners ask me, Ariel, how can I pronounce words correctly? My answer is always the same. First, you must listen. Then you must repeat. Then you must compare. You must not be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are your teachers. Every time you say something wrong, you learn where the problem is. That is how you grow. When I was practicing, I sometimes recorded my own voice and listened. I compared it with native speakers. At first, I did not like my voice. I thought it sounded strange. Then I realized this was a powerful tool. When you hear yourself, you notice what is wrong. Then you can fix it. Each time you fix one small thing, your pronunciation becomes better. This gives you more confidence. So, my friends, do not worry if people do not understand you now. Do not worry if your words come out wrong. With patience and practice, you can change. I am here to guide you step by step. When I practiced more, I started to see a new problem. Sometimes I could say a word alone, and it sounded fine. But when I spoke in a sentence, the word sounded different. I learned that in English, words often change their sound when they are connected. For example, the phrase want to often becomes wanna. The phrase going to often becomes gonna. At first, this confused me. I thought I was saying the words wrong. But later I discovered that native speakers also say them this way in fast speech. This taught me that pronunciation is not only about single words, it is also about how words join together. If you only practice single words, you may still struggle in real conversation. That is why I began to practice with full sentences. I listened to how native speakers joined the words. Then I copied them exactly. It felt strange in the beginning, but after a while, it became natural. Another thing I learned is that English has weak sounds. These weak sounds are very common, but they are hard to hear at first. One of the most common weak sounds is called the schwa. It sounds like You can find it in many words like about, banana, or problem. When I first heard it, I thought people were mumbling. But then I realized this is just the natural way of speaking English. Native speakers do not say every vowel clearly. They reduce the sounds to make speech faster and smoother. Once I understood this, I started to notice it everywhere. And when I began to use the schwa sound myself, my speech started to sound more natural. It was a small change, but it made a big difference. I also discovered that pronunciation practice can be fun. Sometimes I would play little games. I would take a list of words and try to say them quickly. like a tongue twister. For example, she sells seashells by the seashore. At first, I made many mistakes, but then, after some practice, I could say it more clearly. It made me laugh. It also helped me move my mouth in new ways. These games made learning less boring. They also helped me feel more confident. There were days when I felt tired. There were times when I thought I would never sound good. But I reminded myself that pronunciation is a long journey. It is not something you fix in 1 week or even 1 month. It takes time. It takes patience. Every small step brings you closer. So when I felt down, I just did a little practice. Maybe I listened to one word, maybe I repeated one sentence. Even if it was small, it still helped me. Day by day, it built a habit, and a habit creates change. I also learned that it helps to watch my mouth in the mirror. This may sound funny, but it works. When you watch your mouth, you can see if your lips, tongue, and teeth are in the right place. For example, for the F sound, your top teeth must touch your bottom lip. For the V sound, it is the same position, but you must use your voice. When I practiced in the mirror, I saw that sometimes my mouth was not in the right place. That is why the sound came out wrong. Once I fixed the position, the sound became better. This simple trick helped me a lot. One of my biggest mistakes in the beginning was thinking that fast speech means good pronunciation. I tried to speak very fast to sound like a native, but this was not the right way. When I spoke too fast, my sounds became unclear. People could not understand me. I learned that clear pronunciation is more important than speed. It is better to speak slowly and clearly than to speak fast and wrong. Over time, your speed will improve naturally, but clarity must always come first. I also noticed that sometimes my brain wanted to translate from my language. This made pronunciation harder. For example, in my language, the letter R sounds very strong. So when I saw an R in English, I said it the same way. But in English, the R sound is different. It is softer. My translation habit was making me wrong. So I told myself to stop thinking in my language. I tried to think in English only. I told myself, this sound is new. Do not connect it to my old language. Slowly, this helped me build new habits. There was another thing that helped me a lot. I listened to myself reading books aloud. I chose simple books with easy words. I read one page out loud every day. I recorded my voice and compared it with an audiobook. Sometimes I noticed big differences. At first, this made me sad. But then I told myself, this is good. Now I know what to fix. I would listen to one sentence from the audiobook. Then I repeated it until my sentence sounded the same. This was not easy, but it was powerful. With this practice, I learned not only sounds, but also rhythm and intonation. Little by little, my pronunciation improved. I still made mistakes, but people started to understand me more. When someone understood me the first time, I felt happy. I felt more confident. That gave me more energy to practice again. It became like a cycle. Practice gave me confidence. Confidence gave me motivation. Motivation gave me more practice. And with more practice, my pronunciation became even better. So, my friends, remember this. Pronunciation is not magic. It is not luck. It is practice. If you listen, repeat, compare, and try again every day, you will improve. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to be clear. And with time, you will be clear. One day, I asked myself a simple question. Why do children learn pronunciation faster than adults? I thought about it for a long time. Then I realized that children are not afraid of mistakes. They just listen and copy. They do not care if they sound silly. They repeat again and again until the sound becomes natural. Adults are different. We think too much. We want to be perfect. We feel shy if we say something wrong. This fear slows us down. I learned that to improve pronunciation, I must be more like a child. I must play with sounds. I must laugh at my mistakes. I must not stop because of fear. When I accepted this idea, my practice became lighter. I enjoyed it more. I felt free to try, even if my words sounded strange. And slowly, that freedom helped me improve faster. I also found that listening every day is more powerful than practicing only once in a while. At first, I thought one long practice session was enough. I would practice for 1 hour on Sunday, then wait a whole week. But I saw little progress. Later, I changed my plan. I practiced for 10 minutes every day, just 10 minutes. Sometimes I listened to words while walking. Sometimes I repeated sentences while cooking. These small moments made a big change. My brain started to recognize sounds more easily. My mouth remembered how to move. Pronunciation became part of my daily life. Small steps every day worked better than one big step once a week. There was another thing that surprised me. My pronunciation improved when I sang songs in English. At first, I sang only for fun. I liked music, so I sang along with the radio. But later, I realized that singing trained my mouth. It also trained my ear to hear rhythm and intonation. English songs have clear sounds, strong stresses, and smooth connections between words. When I sang, I copied all these things without even thinking. My voice followed the music, and when I spoke later, some of that rhythm stayed in my speech. It made me sound more natural. So, singing was not only fun, it was also learning. I also learned the value of shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and speaking at the same time. At first, this felt impossible. The speaker was too fast. I could not keep up, but I kept trying. I chose short audio clips. I listened many times. Then I spoke along with the audio. At first, my words were behind, but slowly, I got closer. Soon I was speaking almost at the same time. Shadowing helped me in many ways. It trained my ear, my tongue, and my brain together. It gave me the rhythm of real speech. It also gave me courage. Because when I shadowed, I stopped worrying about mistakes. I only focused on copying the sound. This made me more confident in conversation. One challenge I faced was with silent letters. English has many words with letters that are not pronounced. For example, night, right, or island. At first, I always said the silent letters. People laughed when I said K-knife instead of knife. I felt embarrassed, but then I made a list of common silent letters. I practiced them again and again. I told myself, do not trust the spelling. Trust the sound. Over time, I remembered which letters were silent. It became easier, and I realized something important. English pronunciation is not about letters. It is about sounds. Once I focused on sounds, my learning became faster. Another trick that helped me was using minimal pairs. Minimal pairs are two words that are almost the same but have one small difference. For example, bat and pat, or cat and cut. At first, these words sounded the same to me, but when I practiced with minimal pairs, I started to hear the difference. I said one word, then the other. I recorded myself and listened. Slowly, my brain learned to separate the sounds. This made my pronunciation more accurate. Minimal pairs are a powerful tool for learners. Sometimes I practiced with friends. We read sentences together. We corrected each other. When I practiced alone, I did not always notice my mistakes. But with a friend, I got feedback. My friend told me when a sound was wrong. I told my friend the same. We laughed a lot, but we also improved faster. Learning with someone else gave me energy. It also made me feel less alone. Pronunciation practice can be difficult, but with friends, it becomes fun. I also learned about intonation. Intonation means the rise and fall of the voice. In English, intonation can change meaning. For example, if you say, "You are coming," with a flat tone, it is a statement. But if you say, "You are coming," with a rising tone, it is a question. At first, I did not use intonation correctly. My speech sounded flat. People understood my words, but they felt something was missing. When I started to copy the intonation of native speakers, my speech became more alive. It was not only about words, it was about emotion. This made my English sound more natural and clear. There were days when I wanted to give up. I thought, my accent will never change. But then I remembered why I started. I wanted to connect with people. I wanted them to understand me. I wanted to feel confident when I spoke. These reasons gave me strength. I told myself, do not stop now. Every step is progress. And when I looked back, I saw how far I had come. Even if I was not perfect, I was better than before. That gave me hope. So, my friends, the lesson is simple. Pronunciation is a journey. It has ups and downs. It has moments of joy and moments of frustration. But if you keep going, if you practice every day, if you listen, repeat, shadow, sing, and play with sounds, you will improve. And one day, you will speak clearly, and people will understand you. That is the reward for your hard work. When I continued my practice, I started to understand that pronunciation is not just about sounds and stress. It is also about confidence. Many times, I noticed that I could say a word correctly when I was alone. But when I spoke in front of people, I became nervous. My voice became weak. My sounds were not clear. I realized that fear was also my enemy. Fear made my mouth close. Fear made my voice small. So I told myself, do not be afraid. Speak clearly, even if you are wrong. At first, this was hard, but little by little, I trained myself to speak louder and slower. I learned to breathe before I spoke. When I breathed, my voice became stronger. When my voice was stronger, my sounds became clearer. Confidence and pronunciation are connected. If you want to pronounce well, you must also learn to believe in yourself. One technique that helped me was reading dialogues aloud. I found simple dialogues in books or on the internet. I read them with expression, like an actor. I tried to imagine I was in the situation. If the sentence was a question, I used a rising tone. If the sentence was strong, I spoke with power. This practice helped me connect pronunciation with emotion. I was not only saying words, I was acting. And when I practiced like this, my pronunciation became more alive. It was not flat. It was full of feeling. People noticed the difference. They said, "You sound more natural now." That gave me even more motivation. Another habit I built was repeating words I heard during the day. If I watched a video and heard a new word, I paused and repeated it. If I heard someone on the street say something, I copied it quietly to myself. These small moments became secret lessons. My day was full of practice. I did not wait for a special study time. I used every chance. This made pronunciation part of my life, not just part of my study. I also learned to focus on linking sounds. In English, words often connect. For example, in the sentence, "I want to eat it," many speakers say, "I want to eat it." Or in "turn off the light," the sounds connect and become "turn off the light." At first, I thought people were speaking too fast. I thought they were skipping words. But then I realized they were just linking sounds. Once I understood this, I began to copy it. At first it was difficult, but later it felt natural. Linking sounds made my English smoother. It also helped me understand native speakers better. Another challenge was accents. English has many accents: American, British, Australian, and more. At first, I did not know which accent to follow. Sometimes I mixed them. My teacher told me, "It is okay to mix at the start. Just focus on being clear." This advice helped me relax. I stopped worrying about sounding exactly like one accent. I focused on clarity. Later, as I practiced more, I chose the accent I liked best. But the main goal was always the same: clear pronunciation. One powerful practice was listening carefully to short phrases many times. I would choose one short sentence like, "How are you doing today?" I listened again and again. Then I repeated again and again. I tried to copy the exact sound, the rhythm, and the intonation. At first, I sounded different. But after many tries, I became closer. This type of deep practice gave me good results. It was better than trying to practice too many things at once. There were also times when I needed to relax. If I practiced too much, my mouth became tired. My brain became tired, so I learned to take breaks. Rest is also part of learning. When I rested, my brain had time to process the new sounds. Then, when I practiced again, I was stronger. Balance is important. You must work hard, but you must also rest. One day, I recorded myself speaking for 5 minutes. I just talked about my day in English. When I listened later, I felt shocked. I still had many mistakes, but I also noticed progress. My words were clearer than before. My stress and rhythm were better. I smiled because I could hear the improvement. This gave me energy to continue. Recording yourself is powerful. It shows you the truth. It shows your weak points, but it also shows your progress. Both are important. Sometimes I practiced with tongue exercises. For example, to make the R sound, I practiced moving my tongue back. To make the L sound, I touched my tongue to the top of my mouth. These small exercises trained my mouth muscles. At first, I felt silly doing them, but they worked. My mouth became more flexible. My sounds became clearer. Pronunciation is not only about your brain, it is also about your muscles. I also noticed that listening to myself reading the same text again and again made a big difference. On day 1, I read slowly and made many mistakes. On day 2, I read the same text again. It was easier. On day 3, I read it once more. It became smoother. Repetition is powerful. The more you repeat, the more natural the sounds become. So, my friends, remember this. Pronunciation is not a quick fix. It is a daily practice. It is listening. It is repeating. It is shadowing. It is singing. It is recording. It is linking. It is resting. All of these things together make your pronunciation better. Do not give up. Do not think it is too late. Every day you practice, you take one more step forward. One day you will look back and see how far you have come. That is the reward for your effort. One day, I joined a small speaking group. We met online every week. At first, I was very shy. I was afraid that other people would laugh at my pronunciation, but they did not laugh. They were kind. They also had problems with sounds. We practiced together. Sometimes we read stories. Sometimes we repeated sentences after a native speaker. Sometimes we just talked about daily life. Every meeting was a chance to use English. The more I spoke, the more comfortable I felt. I began to see that practice with people is very different from practice alone. When you speak with others, you must listen, think, and answer quickly. This makes your pronunciation stronger. It also makes your confidence grow. In the group, one friend taught me an important trick. He said, "Do not only focus on single words. Focus on phrases I asked him why." He explained, in real life, people do not say words one by one. They say phrases together. If you practice phrases, you will sound more natural. I followed his advice. Instead of only repeating one word like book, I practiced phrases like a good book or read a book. This helped me connect sounds smoothly. It also helped me speak faster without losing clarity. Another thing I discovered was the power of rhythm. English is not only about sounds, it is about music. Some words are strong, and some words are weak. For example, in the sentence, I am going to the market, the strong words are going and market. The small words are softer. This pattern creates rhythm. At first, I did not understand this, but when I listened to songs, I started to notice the rhythm of speech. I copied it. Slowly, my English sounded less robotic. It sounded more natural, like music. Rhythm became my friend. I also paid attention to stress in long words. English has many long words, like information or education. If you put the stress on the wrong syllable, people may not understand. So I learned to check the stress when I learned new words. Sometimes I looked in the dictionary. Sometimes I listened to the word online. Then I repeated it many times. Information, information, information. Practice like this made me sure about stress. Stress is very important. If you get it right, your English becomes clear. At times, I felt tired of practice. I wanted quick results. I asked myself, why is it taking so long? But then I remembered something. Learning pronunciation is like learning a song on the piano. You cannot play it perfectly on the first day. You must play it again and again. Slowly, your fingers learn the movement. Slowly, the music becomes smooth. It is the same with your mouth. Your mouth needs time to learn the movements of English sounds. You must be patient. Patience is also part of learning. One evening, I was listening to a podcast. The speaker said a sentence that touched me deeply. He said, "Your voice is your identity. When you speak clearly, the world can hear you." I realized that pronunciation is not only about language, it is about showing who you are. If your words are not clear, people cannot see your true self. But if your pronunciation is strong, your voice carries your thoughts to others. This gave me a new reason to continue. I was not only learning for exams or jobs, I was learning to show myself to the world. I also found it useful to slow down my speech. Many learners think that speaking fast means speaking well, but that is not true. If you speak too fast, your pronunciation becomes unclear. People cannot understand you. It is better to speak slowly and clearly. With time, your speed will increase naturally. I practiced this by reading slowly, word by word, and making sure each sound was clear. Later, I spoke faster, but clarity remained. This method gave me balance between speed and clarity. A fun activity I enjoyed was reading stories to children. I had younger cousins who loved bedtime stories. I read to them in English. I tried to make funny voices. I changed my tone. I exaggerated sounds. The children laughed. But at the same time, I was practicing pronunciation. Reading to children is very good because you must be clear. You must use rhythm and intonation to make the story interesting. Without knowing it, I was training myself in a natural and fun way. Another key lesson was listening to myself carefully when I made mistakes. Instead of feeling sad, I asked, why did I make this mistake? For example, I often confused the sounds V and W. I said very like wary. Once I noticed this, I practiced the two sounds again and again. I said, "Vine, wine, vine, wine." I recorded myself. Slowly, I improved. The secret is not to run from mistakes. The secret is to face them. Mistakes are teachers. They show you the way forward. Sometimes I practiced in front of a mirror. I watched my lips and tongue. If I wanted to make the th sound, I put my tongue between my teeth. I checked if my mouth position was correct. The mirror gave me feedback. I could see if I was doing it right or wrong. This visual practice made my learning stronger. I realized that pronunciation is not only about hearing, it is also about seeing and feeling. So, step by step, I continued. I built small habits. I listened every day. I repeated every day. I spoke every day. Each small habit was like a brick. Day by day, I built a strong wall. This wall was my clear pronunciation. It protected me from fear. It gave me strength. And it showed me that hard work always brings results. One day, I was walking in the park and listening to English songs with my headphones. I tried to sing along softly. At first, I could not keep up with the rhythm, but then I slowed the music down and sang word by word. Singing was fun. It was not like normal practice. I did not feel tired, and without thinking too much, my mouth learned the sounds. Music has power. When you sing, you repeat sounds many times. You also copy the melody and stress. This makes your English flow better. I kept singing every day. Slowly, I noticed that my speech became smoother, like a song. Another activity that helped me was tongue twisters. Tongue twisters are short sentences with many similar sounds. For example, she sells seashells by the seashore. At first, I could not say it quickly. My tongue felt stuck. But I practiced slowly. Step by step, I improved. Tongue twisters train your mouth like exercise. They are hard, but they make your muscles strong. After a few weeks, normal English sentences felt much easier. I realized that tongue twisters are not only games for children. They are powerful tools for learners. Sometimes I also played pronunciation games with my friends. We chose a word and tried to say it with different accents or voices. We laughed a lot, but in the process, we listened carefully to the real sound. Games like this made practice less boring. They gave me joy, and joy made me continue. Without joy, learning feels heavy. With joy, learning feels light. Another helpful method was shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and repeating it immediately, almost at the same time. At first, shadowing was very hard. My brain and mouth could not move together, but with practice, it became easier. Shadowing helped me catch the rhythm of English. It also trained me to speak faster without losing pronunciation. I shadowed podcasts, movies, and speeches. Sometimes I even shadowed simple conversations. Each time I felt my mouth becoming quicker and my ears becoming sharper. Shadowing became one of my favorite methods. There were also days when I recorded my voice reading news articles. Then I compared my recording with the original speaker. At first, the difference was very big. My speech was flat, and the native speaker had more stress and emotion. But instead of feeling sad, I used the difference as a guide. I tried again. I changed my tone. I moved my voice up and down. With time, my recordings started to sound closer to the original. This made me feel proud. Recording myself was scary, but it was also very powerful. I also learned that pronunciation is not only about sounds, it is about confidence. If you are nervous, your voice shakes. If you are shy, you speak too softly. People cannot hear you. So I practiced speaking loudly. I read books aloud in my room. I gave speeches to my mirror. I trained myself to use a strong voice. Slowly, I felt more brave. Confidence is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Another secret I discovered was to connect learning with daily life. For example, when I saw an English word on a sign, I stopped and said it aloud. When I bought food, I practiced saying the names in English. When I cooked, I described each step in English. Cut the onion. Boil the water. Add the rice. These small actions made pronunciation part of my daily routine. I did not need extra time. I used normal life as my classroom. Sometimes I made mistakes in front of people. I remember one time I said beach, but it sounded like a bad word. Everyone laughed. I felt embarrassed. But later, I realized that this mistake was a gift. It showed me the importance of long vowels. Beach has a long E. Without the long sound, it becomes another word. After that, I always paid attention to long and short vowels. Mistakes like this taught me lessons I never forgot. I also noticed that stress changes meaning in sentences. For example, I did not say he stole the money. If you stress different words, the meaning changes. Stress on I means someone else said it. Stress on he means another person stole it. This discovery opened my eyes. English is not only about words, it is about which word you push with your voice. I practiced by stressing different words in sentences. It made my speech more expressive and more correct. Over time, my ear became sharper. I could hear the difference between ship and sheep, full and fool, live and leave. At first, they sounded the same. But with constant listening, the difference became clear. This gave me hope. I realized that even if I cannot hear something today, I will hear it tomorrow if I keep training. My ears just need time, like my mouth. One thing I told myself often was, do not aim for perfection, aim for progress. If you wait to be perfect, you will never speak. But if you speak with small mistakes, you will learn faster. I gave myself permission to sound funny. I gave myself permission to be wrong. And because of this, I improved. Freedom from fear is very important. Without freedom, your mouth stays closed. With freedom, your mouth opens. And when your mouth opens, your English grows. I also learned to focus on one problem at a time. If I tried to fix everything at once, I became confused. So I chose one sound like teeth. For 1 week, I practiced te. I used it in words and sentences. I repeated it again and again. Only when I felt comfortable, I moved to another sound. This small focus gave me faster results. It is like climbing a mountain step by step. If you try to jump, You may fall, but if you walk slowly, you reach the top. At the end of each day, I remembered one simple truth. Pronunciation is a journey. It is not finished in 1 month. It is not finished in 1 year. It grows with you as you grow. Every sound you practice is a step forward. Every mistake is a lesson. Every success is a light on the road. The journey never ends. But the longer you walk, the stronger you become. One morning I decided to try something new. I stood in front of the mirror and read a poem in English. At first, I felt strange because I never read poems before. But as I read, I noticed something. Poems are full of rhythm, stress, and intonation. They are not flat. They rise and fall like waves. Reading poems gave me a chance to practice melody in English. I repeated each line slowly. I paid attention to the strong words. I let my voice move up and down. After a few weeks of reading poems, my speech became smoother and more colorful. I learned that pronunciation is not just about being correct. It is also about being expressive. Later, I tried acting small scenes from movies. I chose my favorite characters. I copied their words and their feelings. I tried to sound like them. This was fun because it felt like playing. I was not only learning sounds, I was learning emotions and body language. Acting showed me that pronunciation connects with the whole body. When I moved my hands, my voice also changed. When I smiled, my pronunciation was brighter. When I was serious, my sounds became stronger. Pronunciation is alive. It lives in the way you move, the way you feel, and the way you express yourself. Sometimes I read the same story many times. The first time, I focused only on sounds. The second time, I focused on stress. The third time, I focused on rhythm. Reading again and again made me notice new things. At first, it was boring, but later, I realized that each repetition gave me more control. Just like a dancer repeats the same steps, or a musician repeats the same song, a learner repeats words to master them. Repetition is the heart of pronunciation. Without repetition, progress is slow. With repetition, your growth is strong. I also practiced by leaving voice messages for myself. I used a small app on my phone. I spoke about my day. I described what I was doing. I talked about my plans. Later, I listened to the message again. Sometimes I laughed at my mistakes. Sometimes I was surprised at how good I sounded. Recording messages helped me see my progress. It gave me proof that I was moving forward. Even small changes became clear when I listened to old recordings. This made me proud. It also motivated me to continue. Another activity I enjoyed was listening to short English stories before sleeping. I closed my eyes. I focused on the sounds. I did not try to understand every word. I just let the sounds enter my ears. I listened to the melody, the rhythm, the stress. I let my brain relax. This practice was like food for my ears. It trained me even when I was tired. The next morning, I felt that English sounds were more familiar. Listening before sleep was a gentle way to improve. Sometimes I challenged myself with hard words. For example, through, though, thought, and tough. These words look similar, but they sound different. At first, they confused me. I mixed them all the time, but I practiced each one slowly. I repeated them in sentences. I wrote them down and read them aloud. After many days, I finally got them right. This experience taught me that difficult words are like puzzles. They look impossible at first, but if you stay patient, you solve them. I also enjoyed practicing minimal pairs. Minimal pairs are two words that differ by only one sound, like bat and pat, or ship and sheep. Practicing minimal pairs trained my ears and my mouth at the same time. At first, I could not hear the difference, but when I compared them directly, my brain started to notice. I listened, repeated, and tested myself. Slowly, my pronunciation became sharper. Minimal pairs showed me that small changes can make a big difference in meaning. Sometimes I practiced pronunciation while walking outside. I looked at signs, cars, shops, and people. I whispered the English words I knew. I practiced stress and rhythm. Nobody noticed because I looked like I was just talking to myself. This was fun and useful. It turned a normal walk into a lesson. It made me see that the world around me can be my classroom. I did not need to wait for special time. I could practice anytime, anywhere. Another secret I found was to relax my body. When I was tense, my voice was tight. My sounds were not clear. But when I relaxed, my voice became open. I took deep breaths. I let my shoulders drop. I smiled while speaking. Suddenly, pronunciation felt easier. I realized that tension blocks the voice. Relaxation frees the voice. This was a big lesson for me. One evening I practiced with a native speaker online. I was nervous, but I tried my best. She listened carefully and corrected my sounds. She said, "Your mouth is a little closed." "Open it more," I tried again. She said, "Good, now you sound clear." That small advice changed my pronunciation. I learned that sometimes we need feedback from others. We cannot see all our mistakes by ourselves. Feedback is a mirror that shows us what we cannot see. Over time, I began to love the process. Pronunciation was no longer a problem. It was a game, a song, a journey. I saw it everywhere, in music, in stories, in daily life. I was not afraid of mistakes. I welcomed them. I was not shy to practice. I was excited. I realized that pronunciation is not only about English. It is about confidence, patience, and joy.